his hiring plan, I heard you refer to that, you know.
Right. Well,
he's interested in hiring people that can both work on the road and in the jail.
In the jail,
Right.
and that's all well and good. But
but
there's a salary difference here, and I'm looking to get the money spent properly. But our concern is that this has been going on for 9 months, and we, the citizens, were proposed left and right. Get it passed, and we got it passed, and all I want is results, and because I'm concerned about neighborhood safety.
Right. No, I was just out there to do a story on the rehab program, and I asked them about the jail beds again. That was a couple weeks ago, and they gave me the same answer the commissioners gave us. They said, we're still trying to hire, but I mean, we've been hearing that for a long time now.
I have a suggestion, which I'm going to leave to next week if the sheriff can't.
I was planning on doing a follow-up story on it anyway.
Well,
what's your suggestion going to be?
It's always of interest to people.
My suggestion is if the sheriff cannot spend the money, then the commissioners, who don't seem to have any power here, should withhold the funds. Take the funds back that are unspent and withhold the funds until he complies. Period. You know, we're giving you the money, so they have no authority. Well, that's like Congress. Well, they have the ability to...
They do have authority. They have authority to appropriate the funds or not.
Right. So if the sheriff can't comply, I would say we set a deadline. We set a deadline and say if you don't comply, we're going to withdraw the funds. You'd be surprised how quick the sheriff will get going, whomever he is. And I didn't want to lay that out today because they were in a little bit of a defensive posture, and I didn't want
to... Yeah, what did you think of your reception on reflection?
I felt that there was on their part. I felt that there was they were accepting excuses for the non-compliance of what we, the citizens, proposed. And in July of last year, those funds were available to fill the bed space, and 8 or 9 months later, we don't have them filled. Now, to me, that is an unacceptable amount of time for the sheriff to comply with the funds that have been available to him. Now, it's up to the sheriff to find out how he's going to hire these people. That's his job. As I mentioned, if the sheriff can't use the funds, then the funds should be withdrawn and spent somewhere else.
How about Commissioner Burnaby's point that really, Mr. Norman, 100 beds, and you live in Canton, your neighborhood's in Canton, it's not going to make that much difference in terms of getting criminals off the street. How do you react to that?
Well, if 80% is an acceptable answer to when we've been promised 100%, that's 20% of the beds that are not available. That means that there is 100 citizens or 100 individuals who were involved in crime who are still on the street in Stark County. Now, those 100 individuals need to be in the county jail, and it's frustrating for the officers who have to enforce the law to have less than what has been promised to them, and the same thing with the judges who, knowing that they have 100 less beds that they can fill, and thereby limiting their ability to fulfill the maximum potential of their job. And we're out here because we canvassing the streets, talking to 400 homes, knocking on doors, have the same question come up, that we're concerned about crime in the area, and we're only 80% effective. Now, that's not acceptable when we, the citizens, are paying for it. And we were promised 500 beds. We want 500 beds. And the sheriff needs to fulfill that obligation. And the commissioners need to lay the pressure on. If the sheriff cannot spend the funds that are allocated to him to fulfill that responsibility, then I'm not a lawyer and I'm not involved in city politics, but if you don't spend your money, then I think you give it back. And I think the sheriff will pay very close attention when he finds out that the funds that have been made available to him aren't going to be issued to him until he fulfills his obligation. And that's an obligation to the citizens.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked to Sheriff Meyer a week ago, and it's his stance that he's going to hire the different. It was Sheriff Swanson who was the one that was doing the cross training, where he'd hire a deputy to work in the jail and on the road. And I believe it's Sheriff Meyer who's looking to separate those, hiring just solely the corrections officers, and then hiring deputies solely for the road. So it sounded like you'd be in support of his direction of doing that, and not just getting the one officer that could work in both, but getting the separate ones so that you can get some people in there.
Well, I don't know the numbers because I haven't been given the numbers.
Right.
But I would suggest, from where I sit, that there has to be a different salary structure for a patrol officer who is working the road than a deputy sheriff who's in the jail. I don't know that for a fact because I asked that question today and I wasn't given an answer. I'm just surmising that the requirements for a deputy sheriff road patrolman
Right. You're
are
correct.
higher and would require more money.
Right.
My interest here is not only the jail facility, it's using the dollars available to the jail and to the sheriff in the best way. So if we're going to hire individuals that are going to do both jobs, it would seem that we would be paying more for the job in the jail than we need to pay. Now I understand flexibility. I'm in business, and I understand his desire to have flexibility. But on the other hand, we've got budgetary concerns, and I think we should keep the two separate. That the jail guards are on their structure, and the road sheriffs are on theirs, and we don't get them mixed up because I think it's asking too much of an individual to have the knowledge of doing road patrols and guard duty, and the fact that he comes in and he's here one day and somewhere else the next, that he's a guard one day and he's doing road patrol. I think that's asking too much of an of a deputy sheriff to be effective in both areas. And from the cost standpoint, not knowing the answer because I haven't been giving the answer, but I would just surmise that there's a difference in the pay structure.
Yeah, I think it's about $10,000 difference.
Well, that's a whole lot of money.
Road patrol is paid about $10,000.
No, road patrol's like $42,000. I think corrections officers are maybe at $10,000 lower.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but I would assume that there's got to be a difference.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to spend the county's money in the best way, not just because we have money to spend, but we're spending it effectively.
So I heard you mention during the commissioner session possibility of you and people that support you going out to the sheriff's office and doing a little demonstration. Is that
No,
was that just a talking point?
That was just a talking point.
Okay.
We have no intention of doing that, but I threw that out. After he gave me the answer that they have no authority to do it while they have the power of the purse, and I merely mentioned that as a jocular comment that what do you want us to do? It seems like I'm asking the question is how do we get the job, and the commission seems to be sliding around on the answer while they have the purse strings, they don't have the authority. Well, where I come from, when my boss doesn't give me a check, he's got a whole lot of authority. Okay? They sign the checks. I think they got a whole lot of authority. And that's just where I come from when they say they don't have the authority. I just was mentioning us picketing the sheriff's department as a joke because I'm frustrated about. I was frustrated with Commissioner Burnaby's answer about the fact that they have no authority. You know, like I'm here to find an answer to the question, and I didn't walk away from here with an answer to my question.
Yeah,
and I'm anxious to have the sheriff here next week, so the sheriff can sit down and tell us what's going, and we will bring a lot of interested citizens. We will fill this room up with interested citizens who are concerned about what's going on with the crime and I'm only speaking about Canton because I can't talk about Massillon or Alliance because I don't live there, but I'm sure the situations are the same there as they are here, and we're just speaking in the interest of our city. We appeared before the city council meeting on Monday to express our concern there because they supported
got your comments there.
Right, they supported the issue, and we're all looking to get the same results. But 9 months from the time when this was started to now, to me, is unacceptable.
What kind of
You
deadline?
already went to city council?
We went to city council on Monday night and spoke to the same issue.
Right.
I mean, I addressed them. This wasn't a give and take session like it was here, and I appreciate the fact it was a give and take session. You know, I don't have any adversary feelings about the commission. I just want results. That's all I want, and the citizens of the city want results, and that's all I'm speaking to. You know, we gave them the money to spend. They've allocated the money to spend. We don't have the results. That's all I'm here for. And we want the results.
Would it be fair to say that you think that the commissioners are not owning up to what authority they do have? That is to say, the fiscal authority?
I can't comment what's going on in their mind. I'm just saying that the results that the citizens of Canton, and I'm sure for Stark County, expect that if the funds are provided for them in asking them to renew the sales tax increase, and they have done it, that they have fulfilled their obligation. Now, the obligation to fill the county jail with the adequate number of beds has not been met. So my purpose in being here today is to urge the commission to do whatever they possibly can to get this objective accomplished. We're into the first quarter of 2013.
What if it goes to December of 2013?
I mean, I think it's way beyond the time when this project is accomplished.
Yeah. What if it goes to the end of this year? What are you going to be like then?
Well,
Martin, stir it up.
We do have the power of the vote. We would like to see what was promised to us fulfilled, and that's what we're here for. And as I say, the county has the purse strings, and when we talk about authority, the purse strings are that authority. And I understand that the sheriff doesn't report to them, and I understand all of the nuances of that situation, but we want the funds that have been allocated to them to be finalized and get the proper number of beds open in the jail, period.
What kind of deadline? You had mentioned commissioners should set some kind of deadline, and if the sheriff doesn't meet it at that point, then we withdraw the funds. Like, all right, a couple months out, or 6 months, or what kind of deadline do you think would be reasonable? Because the sheriff said he needs 45 people.
I'll be more prepared to answer that question next week because I'm not an expert in the hiring business that goes on in the city government.
And how much money should they bring back? All of it?
If I would say that if they have not spent the money on the beds that has been authorized to them, I think the commission should ask for it back.
Okay.
And I think that the commission should and I'll be more prepared to answer your question next week, and I know you're recording me, but I'll be more prepared to answer that question next week. But I can tell you it will not be a long fuse attached to this. That we are going to demand that this thing be accomplished immediately. Now, we have a lot of people in the advertising business that can help the sheriff. He has problems with his ads and what have you. We go out and walk the streets in 20-degree weather, knocking on doors, asking people to take our CCW class, And at $60, I want to tell you, we are not making minimum wage, even under the current minimum wage. We're not doing it for that purpose. We're doing it to keep the neighborhood safe. And that is my reason for being here today, is to keep the neighborhood safe by getting another 100 people off of the street that need to be off the street, criminals I'm talking about. And that's an important issue. So 100, to pass off to what the 100 going to, what's the difference whether 100 is going to make? Well, if it didn't make any difference to the 100 made, and we were at 200, when they came around and asked us, what's the difference to 300?
Well,
I think it's significant.
I interviewed Stark County prosecutor on that subject when they had gone down to 200 beds.
Right.
And there was a measurement taken, and you could look up our story in the last review. There was a measurement taken, there was a survey done on the impact, and crime did escalate.
Of course it did.
And that was one of their points in trying to get people to support the sales tax.
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
So 100 beds?
And the prosecutor was out there talking that point.
I know he was.
So is that kind of playing both sides of it?
They promised 500 beds.
Huh?
We don't have 400.
Yeah, you see where I'm going with that?
Draw your conclusion.
Yeah, okay.
We were promised 500. We have 400 9 months after the fact. Draw your conclusion. I don't want to comment on what their thought process or how they're attempting to do whatever they're doing. That's not my issue here.
You're just speaking for yourself.
My
right?
issue is that we get to the 500 beds.
Right.
That's what I'm here for, not to find fault with the commissioners of what they didn't do or the sheriff. I just want results, that's all.
Okay.
We're paying for it. We deserve it.
Okay.
And I think the citizens are being short-shifted by not having it filled, and I think the judges would be in 100% compliance with that, because they can't put away people that they need to, and the police officers on the street have got to be frustrated because of the fact that they can't put away as many people as they need to, and the fact that he wants to know a specific case, to me, is immaterial, because, as I said, that's a pimple on a pickle. We're talking about 100 beds here, not about going after an officer. That's not the point that I'm here for. The point I'm here for is the 100 beds, not the fact that we need to validate an officer's comment. We don't need to validate an officer's comment. We all know, going on the streets, that we're short 100 beds and we're feeling the effect of it. So I'm not going to really push that issue, because that's really not important in the whole thing. I didn't make my case based on one officer's. I made my case on the fact that 400 people that we knock on their doors in very high crime areas are scared to death. And that's who I'm talking for, not the officer.
And when you talked to those 400 people, did they bring up the jail issue specifically as one of their concerns because it wasn't open, or they're just saying we're scared to death, and you're looking at all the different ways that make it safer?
It's part of the answer of their concern.
Okay.
But their basic concern is the high crime on the street, and not everybody is focused on whether they're 400 or 500 beds. They just know that the element in which they live has a lot of crime, and they are highly concerned about it. And the fact that the jail is still undermanned is one of the many factors. It's not the only factor, but it's a factor. And it's a factor that we can control. Now, we can't put an officer in every home. It's not possible. But we can move forward to help alleviate the crime in Stark County, and that's why I'm here.
Well, what did you think of Commissioner Creighton's statement that we're not into promising zero tolerance?
Well, that was a comment that she made that was related to her term as mayor.
Right.
It has nothing to do with what went on here today.
Well, but your neighborhood people would like zero tolerance, wouldn't they?
The desires of the citizens are that all criminals are removed and face the justice system and the penalties that go along with that. So if that's 100% if that's zero tolerance, every judge that sits in that courthouse across the street would 100% agree that every criminal should face the penalties as prescribed by law. So that's zero tolerance.
Okay.
Did you vote for sales tax?
Pardon me? Yes, I did.
You did?
Yes, I did. And we, I'm a member of the Vassar Park Neighborhood Association.
Vassar?
Vassar, V-A-S-S-A-R,
Okay.
Neighborhood Association, invited Commissioner Burnaby to speak to our group. And although the bylaws of the association do not allow us to vocally support a candidate or an issue, because that's not how we're structured, the general feeling amongst the attendees was very positive. But we as an association, by our bylaws, cannot endorse candidates or issues, nor do we. But Commissioner Burnaby made a very good case, along with Jim Knight from the Stark County Prosecutor's Office, and we had Sergeant Swank at the meeting also. They made a very good case, and I think as individuals, and I'm only speaking as individuals, I think most people came away with a positive view. And I would have to say, as a result of their speaking to City Council and to the various neighborhood associations, it had a very positive effect on getting that tax renewal passed. And I commend them for it, because it's a good issue.
So what you're doing now is just an exercise in accountability.
Correct. Well, we're looking to have what was promised to us as citizens fulfilled. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And who do you plan to bring with you next week? Like, I guess I was wondering, you said you could fill up this room. I was wondering, is it people on the doors that you're knocking, or is it people through the CCW classes, or I didn't know if you're, or the association group, or?
It will be anyone who is interested in reducing crime in, we're talking, I can only speak for the city of Canton, anybody who's interested in reducing crime. So it'll be an assortment of individuals, and I would have to say that it'll be a cross-section of all kinds of people in all kinds of occupations, with all kinds of organizations. And we're not looking to bring an organization down here. We're bringing citizens down here, and that's who it is. We're not marching down here as any